Morning, Neil.
Sean, how's it going?
Going great.
Sean was in as an attendee. We were right.
Sorry, I just clicked on a link. Do you want me to get out and come back in somehow differently?
Kate, Allison, can you hear
Yeah,
Sean?
you're fine now. We've promoted you.
Awesome.
The joys of technology. One of the students who's listening could probably explain all of this to us.
Sure.
Takes me years to get promoted, Sean. Kate or Allison, are you starting this?
Kate, we have quite a few schools already on and ready to go.
I see that. So I'm going to stop sharing. And by magic, it is recording this time. We don't know what's going on with that either. So, you know.
I hit record.
Because it didn't do it automatically?
No, it was not.
So this is what we're learning. So hello to the students and educators who are participating. Welcome to Manufacturing Days 2020, the virtual edition. I'm Kate Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Education and Workforce for the South Bend Regional Chamber. Allison Herzig, you see her box right there. She is Director of Programs, Education Workforce Programs for the Chamber. And we're running point on this as best we can, learning our technology and adding things to our resumes as we go through the COVID response. So quick housekeeping. Thanks to all of you for being a part of Manufacturing Day and attending this session. All attendees are muted. So we are using Q&A. We've muted everybody. This is set as a webinar. And the reason that you can't be seen or you can't chat is because we are trying to keep it, as we record it, we want to protect privacy of the students. So to make sure that there's no pictures out there. So you can't make yourself seen or unmute yourself. So it's kind of weird. You kind of feel trapped in that, but there will be a great conversation and you can communicate via the Q&A. So if you will go into the Q&A and put what your name and what school you're from, that would be great. And then also throughout the session, if you have any questions, that would be wonderful. So this session is scheduled for 45 minutes and we'll be sharing questions you drop into the Q&A as well with our speaker. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this session, Neil Miller, who is a commercial business banker with the sponsor of the session, First Source Bank. So now I turn it over to Neil.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. Little background on myself. Been a business banker with First Source Bank for approximately 20 years. I handle over 50 business banking customers in Northern Indiana, Southwestern Michigan, with a focus on the manufacturing community. Manufacturing's a big part of First Source Bank, very attractive banking customer as manufacturing covers a wide realm of products. They usually have lines of credit. They usually have equipment needs. Obviously, they are housed somewhere, so there's real estate needs. With that said, proud to be a sponsor. We're proud to be a sponsor of Manufacturing Days and proud to partner with the Chamber and CNS Machine. Excited to introduce Sean Fye, President of CNS Machine. Sean's going to introduce you to CNS Machine, which I have to say is one of the most impressive manufacturing companies in our area, and he'll talk about the career opportunities that they can offer. Hoping a little more, we'll learn a little more about Sean and his career pathways along the way. With that said, Sean Fye, you want to give a little background on yourself and how you came to be at CNS Machine?
Sure, I appreciate it. Welcome everyone. Excited to share with you and spend some time about manufacturing. My own path didn't start in manufacturing, believe it or not. I was background as an accountant. I came out of college with an accounting degree, spent about 8 years as a CPA working in public accounting, and moved into a CFO position for an actual architect engineering firm. Still wasn't in manufacturing. Then about 12 years ago, got into that space about 10 or 12 years ago, and initially in electronics manufacturing, and then I've been at CNS now for a little over 120 days. And so but manufacturing is an amazing opportunity. There's a lot of potential for growth. Obviously, our nation, our president has been trying to bring back manufacturing, And I've had my own experiences in Asia and China and learning that type of manufacturing and what we bring to the United States in manufacturing. And, I hope to, all you students be able to get some of that out of today's session. And, you never know where you're going to be in life. And I've been doing some manufacturing days in the Elkhart area the last few years with an electronics company. And these were 8th graders coming in. And one of them asked me like, hey, is this what you want it to be when you grow up? And I would have never, you tell me that 15 years ago when I'm, in my late 20s, and I'm like, there's no way I'm sitting here running a manufacturing company. But you never know where your paths are going to take and the opportunities that you get. And it's great to be a part of CNS and our team. And we're just excited about the future. And we're excited about where we're heading in the future.
Thanks, Sean. My background, I also have an accounting degree, and I never imagined I would be a banker. So,
Small world, right?
yeah. Hey, Sean, could you give a little history of CNS Machine? It's an impressive story of where Joe Sarator started and where Dominic's taken it from there over the years.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a family business, started in 1966. And he actually started as a small machine shop, mainly doing machine parts for Studebaker Corporation. And as it evolved a little bit, there was a company called Clark Equipment, and he started making machine parts for them and using lathe machines and mills and presses, and was just generally a small business. And obviously that was 50 plus years ago. And so as we navigate forward, Dominic, his son, took over. So it's a 2nd generation family owned business. And Dominic has been in the business for almost 30 years now. And interesting story on him. He was actually in college trying to, wasn't really for him, left college to try to become a professional golfer. Dad said, hey, that's probably not working out. Why don't you come back into the family business? So he himself really never finished schooling, but knows this business like the back of his hand, has made some great decisions, and really helped launch his dad, Joe, into the aerospace industry. And aerospace, compared to making machine parts for equipment, is kind of like, flying the plane versus driving to Disney World. It's just, a lot faster, different experience, much more precision. And the company had to evolve through that process, and that's kind of been the evolution. And so the business has morphed into more of dealing with aerospace, which we make a lot of parts for airplane jet engines. A lot of our components go into those engines, and we sell to a supplier then that sells to companies like Boeing and Airbus and Lockheed Martin, and a mixture of military airplanes and commercial airplanes. But the one thing that impresses me is there's probably not an airplane or a helicopter on the planet that we don't have a part in. And we're right here sitting in Niles, Michigan. So it's pretty cool.
Thanks, Sean. Could you go into some more detail about the product lines, what you guys manufacture, what goes into it, the tolerances, things of that nature?
Yeah. So one thing that's fascinating, and I am constantly a learner, and I love learning. So I spend about 30 minutes a day on our own production floor. Through that process, coming out of electronics manufacturing, where it dealt with circuit boards and mainly the RV industry, it just had to kind of work. It didn't need to be perfect. It was going into an RV. But when you get into aerospace and defense, and we do a little bit of medical as well, these parts are super high tolerances. Just yesterday, I was on the floor with my director of parts processing and product development, and we were trying to hold an 11 millionths tolerance on a piece of metal that was 2 inches long. And it took about an hour and a half for really just to get the machine prepped to actually hold that tolerance. And so really, really tight tolerances. And if you think about the width of a human hair, that's 4 times thinner than the width of a human hair that we have to hold a tolerance to. And so when you basically pick that part up, it loses tolerance. The heat in your hand will take that tolerance out. because it'll expand the metal. So it's just fascinating, the detail that needs to happen, the craftsmanship that needs to happen on our production floor every day is super important to meeting our customers' expectations. And these are going into jet engines, obviously, and it affects human life. And I would say that what I'm learning is that 30, 40 years ago, they still needed these tolerances, but the tools weren't there. And now that the tools are getting better and the machinery is getting more sophisticated and automated, and advanced manufacturing becomes more of a reality every year, it's more of a demand that you hit these crazy tolerances, and you have to prove that you do. So you have to bake the quality throughout the process of making sure that the right checks and balances are happening in your business to deliver that super high tolerant part. And so a lot of the parts that we make are pistons or sleeves. We call them spools that go into components of the jet engine that help move liquid or fluid. We also do some barrels that tie into the hydraulic side of an engine, and things that spin at a very high rate and are very critical that they maintain their structure in the process. And on the medical side, we're getting into making some hip joints. So anything from the actual hip to the ball, and there's about literally 168 different products that we make for a hip company that sells into that space. And then on the defense side, we do make some gun components where we're dealing with barrels or the bolt action that's in a rifle. A lot of people know the company Remington or Browning, and we sell directly to those folks. Some of those sights and barrels that need high-end machining done on them.
Yeah, it's impressive when you say lives are at stake. If the tolerances aren't right, bad things can happen with the planes, etc. Talk about how big, what revenue size is CNS? What do typical products that you guys manufacture sell for?
Yep. Sure. Again, the investment in equipment is critical, and Neil and I were talking yesterday, and it's always great when we can bring people into our facility. We invest heavily in equipment and precision, advanced manufacturing. We have a lot of robots on the floor, which that demand requires that you sell things for a pretty good price, because you have to keep making investments in R&D. And in our process and delivering those high quality parts. So currently we have about 100 employees. We hit about 20 million in revenue in 2019. Unfortunately, COVID brought us down a couple million, but we're on a trajectory next year to get back up to $23 million as our goal, with or without COVID. And we have some great opportunities in actually space and defense. And there's a lot more space companies coming in, with SpaceX being relevant now on our planet, and it's similar types of parts in these spools and pistons, and these parts are usually no bigger than my hand, and they range in price from $100 to $3,000, and it really is just tied to the type of metal that it is, the density of that metal, and the process. And I'll you say, well, how do you justify holding a 1-inch piece of metal in your hand and charging $1,000 for it? There's a reason why the government spends $80 million on planes. And it's part of that process of getting everything accurately and right. And so it's an industry that allows some great margins, but it also demands perfection. And we're actually moving towards models right now with our customers that they want 0 defect. You have to be perfect. You ship perfect. And so you have to build systems around that, information systems, physical processes, machinery that you can then feel comfortable running the business saying, I'm going to go deliver that every single time. And so, these parts get kind of crazy, expensive. There's a part we're doing with a company called Moog, that's a space and defense company. And it's no different than a part about this big. It's got a barrel in it, but it's got very complex tolerances in it. And it's spinning hydraulic fluid throughout it when it's in its final application. And we're probably going to charge about $3,600 on the production side, per piece. And so, that helps expand our revenue. But it also allows us to push the limits on advanced manufacturing. And that's what we want to do here. We have a goal to not just be a growing company, we want to be a world-class company that puts Niles, Michigan on an aerospace map, and really be a supplier that people are like, wow, I can't believe they're doing that in Niles, Michigan, of all places.
Okay. Just to pause, if any of the classes have questions, they can type them into the chat. I believe Kate indicated, Allison indicated. So any questions that come up, feel free to type them in and we'll get those shortly. Sean, I've been in a lot of manufacturing facilities. What CNS and the Sarator family built in Niles is one of the most cutting edge facilities I've been in. It's just an impressive all around. Could you talk a little bit about how many employees you have, what type of entry level jobs you have that our audience, the high school students, would be interested in, and growth opportunity from the entry level?
Yeah. So, the biggest challenge that I actually have, we have a very clear vision to try to actually get to 55 million by 2029. And we state it everywhere. It's pasted on our computer screens. It's pasted on our monitors. And that's great. And then you have to figure out a plan to get there. And Dominic and the family have really did build a world-class facility. And that was the start. And the biggest challenge is if you don't grow through automation, there's a mixture of people that you need, talent that you need, and it's and manufacturing and craftsmanship and being a machine operator for the last 20 years has been like a dying art in America. And not a lot of people thought that was great to be that. And we were told that everyone should go to college. Now, college is important for a lot of positions in life. And I don't get my start in public accounting without a college degree. But that doesn't mean you don't necessarily have a path to be a successful person, leader, running a manufacturing company someday without a college degree. And I think there's been a shift as we're trying to, as the trade wars happened with China over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a shift to say, why can't we just do more manufacturing in America? And why can't we develop these things? And part of it is a mindset change, which is happening. And we have great things like manufacturing days to bring awareness to this. And I just literally read an article, a guy in Chicago that makes screws. He's the number one screw machine operator in America. And he starts recruiting at 6th grade. And he tries to bring in co-ops into a free internship in 6th grade to get them to be a journeyman by the time they're a senior in high school. And so the path for a lot of students like you guys right now is that we do offer co-ops and I have 2 co-ops in our floor right now that go to some high school. One goes to Niles, and I think the other one may go to Buchanan. And they come in, work about 10 to 15 hours a week. They help with machine maintenance. They help with putting, recycling our oil, or they may start kitting a job. And that gets them in the door and familiarized with their production floor. We love to have 4 or 6 of these people all the time. And we're struggling to get 2 at times because of awareness. And so we need to do a better job as leaders in the manufacturing space of going out and recruiting and using opportunities like today to say, hey, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd love to sit down and see where your path's going, because we will have a void eventually as a generation retires off, and we have to backfill that with new talent. And then so from a co-op, you can move into an apprenticeship program. And we actually help provide funding for that for our employees. And we just launched a Tooling University. It's an online apprenticeship program. Some of it we're going to use for training internally, but other stuff we're just going to actually use for our apprenticeship program, where people are trying to get their journeyman card on a machine. And so, you come into our facility and your base wage is anywhere from $16 to $18 an hour. And we have operators that make almost all the way up to $30 an hour. and our base formula when we're in our sweet spot is our machine operators work about 47 hours a week. So with overtime, that's a great paying job, with great stability. And you factor in maybe, okay, do I want to go to college? Do I not want to go to college? And that 4 year of maybe debt compilation is a hard burden to overcome in today's world, where you can be earning, $30 to $45,000 right out of high school, and learning how to be a master of a machine, which is a need. And we need more people that are saying, hey, that's how I'm wired. That's how that makes sense to me. Not everyone's meant to be in a conference room in meetings. A lot of people just like to be doers and they're hands-on, and they go home very satisfied at the end of the day saying, wow, I just made a part that went into a jet engine. How cool is that? And so we're constantly trying to do better at creating awareness, providing opportunities. We love to bring on a couple more high school kids all the time and say, hey, this is the business, this is how it works. And there's some pretty cool stuff. Most of our equipment, when we buy a new piece of equipment, it usually averages about $500,000 a piece. And so we have about, Neil, you probably know more than I know how many pieces of equipment we have in our building, but it's about over 100 of those things, and with a lot of inspection equipment and testing equipment, and we want to keep pushing the envelope on how to bring in more advanced manufacturing. And we got some room in our facility, thankfully, to do it.
Yeah, elaborate a little on some of Sean's comments. I'm part of the National Machining and Tooling Association, and for years, the comments were, we don't have enough talent. We're just stealing employees from each other.
Yep.
Within manufacturing days and different things of this such, I think we're doing a much better job of educating the younger generation of job opportunities in manufacturing. Glancing at a question, Sean, I think you addressed most of days. What kind of training or education you require for these highly precise jobs? I think you addressed education, but a lot of hands-on training at CNS, along with, I think most manufacturing facilities do a lot of hands-on training. And you addressed the internship, apprenticeships.
And it's definitely a balance there. There's definitely, if you go too much textbook, you need to be able to pass it down through mentorships. And we try to mentor our younger, machine operators, because we're trying to make, in our opinion, fine jewelry. That's what we call it around here. We're selling fine jewelry. It's not jewelry as you traditionally know it, but it's jewelry that goes into the bowels of a jet engine. And it needs to look right, and it needs to perform.
You had mentioned apprentice with Buchanan and Niles High School. I think last year you had a student from New Prairie, so you're not limited. You're not limited to the Michigan market.
Nope.
Talk about growth beyond the entry level. I think CNS has a great retention rate. The benefits offered, the job happiness, etc. There's minimal turnover, and there's growth opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you try to take your vision and say we want to grow, you need to create the infrastructure. And we recently launched a culture committee that kind of deals with trying to create the right culture. I mean, work-life balance is definitely a buzz topic, but we're also trying to create very accurate parts, which demands intensity. And so there's a balance there on how do you communicate the why of what you're doing business for, and getting that all the way through the operator so they take that level of detail. But we have people actually that we found at a gas station, and they're now running an EDM machine, which is an automated electronic discharge machine. That's basically electrocuting metal to get very fine details and curves on a process. And the gal's brain was just wired that way, and she just picked it up and is going. And so really, I look at it as, your current opportunity is always your best opportunity for your future. And you go into those opportunities and you say, you know what, I'm going to own that. I'm going to do my very best in that. It opens up many doors. And I want as many employees to be here for as long as they possibly can. And our goal is to retire everyone here, because there's less training and there's less circling around and having to reteach. But that's not always the case. And we want the best for our employees. And that means sometimes like their passion and energy is maybe photography. And we've got to help them get to that. And maybe we're a stepping stone to that. And we want to be aware of that as leaders. But, we try to be intentional as we can, of why we make the parts the way we do. But definitely there's a path to say, okay, I come in as a co-op, I get my apprenticeship. I may be a leader of a small team to all the way to one of our cell expert leads, which is, a guy that's been here for 15 to 25 years that knows everything about that machine inside and out and is teaching the next generation. And that path takes some time. It takes some time to master. Some of our machines are, I call them three-headed monsters, because there's 3 programs running at the same time to run 3 different tool packs inside the machine. And that takes mathematical skills. It takes some critical thinking skills. And those things are still just as important. Now, those are sometimes important in an executive boardroom, but if our machine operator is critically thinking through his challenges on every day and saying, that doesn't seem right, or my tool's not performing right, I'm going to do this different. That adds value back into our business just as much as me sitting in a boardroom trying to provide the structure. And those opportunities exist every day. And that's the exciting thing about manufacturing to me, is the variables are endless on how to get better. You just have to have the drive, the passion, the commitment, and create and foster that environment. And we work pretty hard to try to do that every day here. And we're intentional about that. That's our mindset. Let's intentionally and be deliberate about delivering extraordinary results. And that's how we handle our employees, to all the way to how we handle our customers, and ultimately that product getting into an airplane or a helicopter, train, or someone's hip, which is crazy in itself.
I see we have one pretty specific question here, Sean. Can you see this question,
Yep.
Sean? Evan,
Yes.
have you ever given any thought to make things for General Dynamics Land Systems / Chrysler Defense? I don't know if that is someone you've worked with before or not.
It is. General Dynamics is not. One thing that's important in business is not all revenue is great revenue for your business, and understanding how to go to market. I think that's something that the family, the Sarator family, and Dominic especially has done really well over the years, and is say, okay, what are we great at? And I think in today's world, we're supposed to be great at everything, but that's not true. You can't be the master of 100 things. There's not enough time. And it takes time and talent and execution to get those things right. And if you throw 10 things at it, you don't do that too well. But sometimes it comes down to great relationships, and still selling to me, and where do we go find our next revenue bucket? It's where do we have great relationships? Where can we leverage those? Now, COVID and times like this where we can't be together in person, it makes relationships challenging, because we are people, like the human race is very relationship based, and we do well when we're doing that together. And Neil, you and I sit down and have lunch and we talk about something, versus everything over Zoom. You kind of lose some context of the relationship, or you can put the person on mute or stop your video screen and get distracted with something else. But if you, Evan, actually happen to have the lead on that, feel free to email me it, and I can send you my sales guy on it in attack. But some of these industries, like the automobile industry, we can make parts for automobiles probably all day long, but the margins and the relationships and what we're trying to achieve as a business doesn't necessarily 100% align with that. So we make our decisions off that. The strategies and our roadmap to growth is, we try to get that as strategic as we possibly can. But defense is definitely an area that we're looking at right now, and we're actually trying to find a solution in doing some direct contracts with the Department of Defense ourselves, and find avenues to go direct. And but there's a lot of paperwork and complexity and logistics to that. Easier said than done, but it's a great question. But that's kind of our philosophy on how we go to business is we definitely want to be very strategic about that. It affects everyone. It affects our team members. It affects morale. And if it's the wrong revenue, sometimes that revenue is extremely costly, and it's just not beneficial to the business to keep making the investments that we need to grow our company.
Any other questions, please type them in the Q&A. Sean, you mentioned a salesperson. CNS isn't just individuals on the manufacturing floor. There's other opportunities there. There's a human resources, marketing, some of the best upkeep. Sean had mentioned the number of machines on the floor. Some of the best upkeep I've ever seen in my customer base of maintaining the machines. Other than, talk a little bit about other job opportunities other than just the on the floor of the facility.
Yeah, it's my role is actually I'm president, and I also call myself an integrator. And my job is to come in and integrate our teams. And we have on my executive team, I have a VP of sales. I've got a director of human resources. I've got a director of kind of part processing and product development. And then I have an operations manager that handles our production floor, which also entails engineering and quality. So, in those 6 areas, you have accountants, you have supply chain, purchasing folks, you have customer service representatives, engineers, you have quality, you have inspectors. It takes a team to pull this off at the type of business we want to be. And it takes all of us to be able to function together, not in silos, understand our business so we're making great decisions together. You can definitely have areas of your business that you have these awesome team that sits in a corner and performs in its corner. But if it's not fully integrated with the company strategy and the company goals, it kind of gets lost. And so we definitely, I actually have an internship this Christmas coming in because he's a senior in college at the Kelly School of Business. I'm a numbers guy. That's my background, but I'm also trying to implement a lot of different projects right now that revolve around information systems, which is our accounting system and system that helps us run the manufacturing floor. We have a project around our part life cycle management process. We're going to attach a software to help us navigate through the complexity of interacting with our customer, because there's a lot of touches between compliance and certifications that we need because of the type of parts we need. And so I'm bringing in a kid that says, hey, I have a 2-month window because of COVID. We're not going back. We're going to end a little early. I'm going to do a course online, and I have 2 months. And he has great experience with a tool called Microsoft Power BI, which is business intelligence, connecting databases. And he also has SQL database experience. And I have a lot of heavy lifting that needs to get done to move our business forward into being highly more automated on our information systems that match our physical systems. So there's opportunities like that. So you say, well, I'm not a machinist, but hey, if you want to take 4 weeks of your life, I could probably find a home for 1 or 2 of you that says, hey, come on in, I'll stick your head in a spreadsheet and let's automate this place together. There's definitely opportunities like that.
Thanks, Sean. Any recommendations?
Guys are like, go ahead. Yeah,
Any-
they're not, feel free, you guys, to put more questions in. There's never a bad question. I may not have the answer, and I'll be the first to tell you, like, yep, don't know that one, but whatever's on your mind, feel free to use the Q&A.
Good call. Any recommendations for the students considering a job in manufacturing field? Classes to take, work experience to pursue?
Yes, especially in manufacturing, if you're going to run a machine, math is really important. And some people look at math and like, well, I'm not going to be a math teacher. And I'm not saying you have to take calculus, but understanding relationships between it. I mean, high-end automating machine is basically, it's using number calculations to figure itself out. And you've got an XYZ access with an ABC access around that. You have basically 6 access machine thinking all the time. And it's a giant math equation. And even the manufacturing process, it's a math equation. There's a certain number of hours in a day. There's a certain number of resources that you have, and you only get 24 hours in every day to play with. And you do have to send your people home to get rest and spend time with their family. So it's, you know, I think math is a great foundation for not only accounting, but only for manufacturing and for business in general. You know, but you know, if you're a student looking, say, well, where do I focus on? I made a comment. I think a lot of people in today's world, they worry about their future. Like, what am I going to go be? What am I going to go do? And they lose track of the now, and really being excellent in the now and demanding that out of yourself pays massive dividends for you later. And the people around CNS know I love numbers. I'm a numbers guy by heart. But my passion for numbers eventually led me to an opportunity to run a business, and being able to explain it, articulate it. So you look at writing skills and comprehension and critical thinking skills. Anything you can do to sharpen those things adds immense amount of value into organizations. A lot of people, you can say, well, just here, I need you to take this phone and put it over here all day long, and they can do that. Now, if they think like there's a better way to do this, they just add an immense amount of value, and they bring that to the table. You're like, I want that employee for life. And so, but take advantage of the opportunities you have now. You're all sitting in some of an advanced manufacturing class, which is amazing in high school. You can never not be prepared enough, in my opinion, to go out and face the world. So we have immense amount of tools to help do that. And so it's just leveraging those things, or going out and being bold. Maybe you're a little bit shyer and you're like, hey, that just doesn't seem like I could ever get that opportunity. Go ask 100 people, go ask 50 people. Someone probably is going to give you an opportunity. The manufacturing world, like Neil, you said, they know that there's this demand crunch, and it's real and it's coming. And the more that we try to bring this back, we need people that say, hey, this is for me. We need people stepping up and bringing, being bold and saying, I think I can go do this. Does this make sense? So I definitely, value though people living in the now and executing in the now, and that prepares the future. One of my questions, actually, when I was interviewing for this position, they're like, how do you go from a CPA to running a business? Because, typically CPAs are not necessarily diehard risk-taking entrepreneurs. And so we have to learn that, because we are very conservative in nature. We are high integrity, let's get the number right type people. And I've had to learn, and I had a great mentor, the guy that I worked for at KIB Electronics, my previous job, where I was a president. He was a diehard entrepreneur. He was a self-starter at 27, rolled the dice, rolled up the family farm basically and mortgaged it and went into business, bought a business. And he was a sales guy, non-college educated. He even self-proclaimed, like, I don't even know how I made it out of high school. But today he's a self-made millionaire because he put hard work, dedication, some great decision-making through the process. And sure, you sometimes get lucky, but you usually make your luck, usually put yourself in a position. And I was just the guy that, in our business at KIB, and I do it here, I raise my hand and say, hey, teach me. What can I learn from you? And I'm actually having lunch next Monday with Joe, who's a founder. He's 82 years old. Neil knows this. Joe just retired last year, and it took him a decade to get to that point, is what I'm told. And he is a wealth of knowledge on how to run a business. He's been through a lot of trials, a lot of tribulations, a lot of hard times, and a lot of good times. And that hour and a half for me is special. Because I'm saying, hey, Joe, like, just tell me about some craziness that you went through. How did you handle it? How did you deal with it? How did you deal with trying to grow the business? the past is really important to prepare for the future, you know? So I think it's important for kids to take advantage of that. My dad was a machinist, and I never went home asking, "Hey, Dad, what do you actually do?" I just knew he was a machinist. Now I just turned 42. I wish I asked him those things at 17, at 16, because it would have better prepared me even for today, where I'm sitting here running a world-class, high-end machine shop.
You mentioned Joe for the last 10 years. I think every time I showed up at CNS, Joe was out on the floor running a machine.
Absolutely.
Very hands-on. And I bet it's still hard for him to stay away when what he calls retirement.
Yes.
I think we're getting close to our time. I'm gonna say a couple of my thoughts, and Sean, you can in on your thoughts. But I couldn't emphasize more the number of manufacturing opportunities out in our community, and the workforce, is aging. Every one of my customers, if you walk in, the people on the floor are getting up in age, and it needs to be replaced. And there are great opportunities, great paying jobs that you have to think through, that are challenging. I just couldn't emphasize that there are great opportunities out there in the manufacturing field. Whether you're college educated or not college educated, definitely something to pursue and consider. With that said, Sean, you want to give some closing remarks?
Yeah, well, I wish I could meet you all in person. I love interacting with students. I have 7 kids, so I know kids. I have a little bit of craziness at home, and thankfully I have an amazing wife that handles a lot of that chaos for me. So I get to come here, and I call this my playground work, and my time away from that. But I encourage you guys to to keep pushing, to keep pursuing excellence. Our country needs this. Our manufacturing facilities need this. And there's a lot of great, cool things going on in America manufacturing right now. And there's never enough awareness about this. There's immense amounts of investment. I didn't talk about it, but I mean, the owner and I right now are looking at putting in a $2.6 million high-end cell that is going to be eventually tying 3 machines together with a robot on a track, feeding the parts. We need very sophisticated people that know how to run that, application people that know how to program those things. So there is endless opportunities in manufacturing, and we are just one small facet of a larger pool of manufacturers. And there's all sorts of different manufacturers, from people that make boxes to people that make high-end tech. And the demand is even greater for it becoming here, because there's global crisis going on. There's global logistical crisis going on, but then there's a pandemic that halts business. And so I know that firsthand, because I had several trips to China planned this year, even that got canceled before I came here, which slowed down my supply chain. And so keep pushing and plug in when you can. Get with your instructor and say, hey, how do I find an opportunity? And I'm sure some of the adults in the room here will help you get linked. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate the time with you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sean.
to Neil and Sean very much for this great conversation. 2 things that I wrote down was, your current opportunity is always your best opportunity for your future, which was a really good quote. And the mentorship is key. So as Neil had mentioned, trying to make sure that our employers are using the accumulated wisdom of the older people on their floor and figuring out how to transfer that knowledge to the young people coming in, to make sure that things are not lost in that gap. No, I mean, if you can learn from the person who's been doing it for 30 years, you're going to be so much better, so much faster than if you're trying to figure it out on your own. And I think that transfer of knowledge is key for everybody.
Absolutely.
So finding a mentor is great. And I really appreciate that insight. And what you said about, there's so many cool things made here. The Manufacturing Days landing page has multiple videos, including one from CNS, just showing all the cool things made here, the people that work there, the kind of jobs. So I encourage the students and educators to take a look at that. And I again thank Neil and Sean and all the students and educators who are participating. So don't forget to visit the Manufacturing Days landing page. If you Google the South Bend Regional Chamber, you can find the Manufacturing Days landing page. No, those addresses are too long to even try to make anybody remember. And also all panels are being recorded, so you can check out other sessions. This one will be out there if you want to go back and watch, if you want to hear some more words of wisdom or share with your parents. We'd really also like parents to hear these conversations about when you're thinking about your next step, if it's college, if it's straight to work. If you heard something here that you want your parents to know, make sure you share this with them so they also hear that same message as you're exploring what your next step is. So thanks to everybody for being a part of this. Really appreciate it and have a great day.
Thanks.